Hey everyone, if you're one of the millions of Canadians in this country who have watched your wages stagnant for the last 3 or 4 decades, in contrast and comparison to the inflation rates in this country, and seen the decreased purchasing power when you go to the store to, like I say, buy your groceries, or to pay that rent, or to pay your mortgage, or to put fuel in your car or truck, or natural gas to heat that home. You've seen, like I say, that ramp up and escalation in regards to the inflation rate, and your wages have been stagnant or in decline in comparison for quite some time now. And why that is because you have to function under market fundamentals. Those of us in the private sector have to function under supply and demand and market fundamentals in regards to economic activity. But on top of that, and in addition to that, you also have to deal with all the central planning initiatives and big government policies that have also greatly contributed to wage stagnation by giving major corporations the ability to bring in large numbers of temporary foreign workers or immigrants to compete for those jobs, which once again greatly contributes to the stagnant aspect of the wages in this country. A big, giant, glaring divide and contrast is those who work for government. Those 4.1 million Canadians that work for all areas of federal, provincial, and local governments. And those at some of the very top in terms of representation of those who work for government are the politicians who represent the established political parties in this country. And their wages are always on the rise and always out in front of inflation. So while they're always gaining and achieving more success as far as their purchasing power, it comes directly at the expense of those in the private sector who have to pay, who are forced to pay for these people's salaries. Headline of the Toronto Star: iPolitics, MPs receive $3,300 boost to annual salary. It's being reported by Tim Nomitz, April 30th, 2019. Members of Parliament received a pay hike this month that many of their constituents might envy. The $3,300 increase on April 1st took their basic annual salary to $178,900 for 2019, a jump of nearly 2% from $175,600 last year. So once again, staying ahead of that inflation rate. It was an automatic yearly adjustment based on government aggregate of private and public sector wage settlements maintained by Employment and Social Development Canada. But the annual hikes introduced in a reform of the pay system for MPs and senators under Jean Chrétien's government in the early 2000s have steadily increased MP salaries and edged even backbench MPs closer to the salaries enjoyed by the top few percentiles of income earners in Canada. The latest Statistics Canada data put the 2016 threshold for the top 1% of incomes in Canada at $226,200 in annual earnings. Based on statistics from Revenue Canada, the same data set for 2018 won't be available until 2020. So basically what this is saying is, and this is for the top 1%, right? So around 226,000. So basically what this article is suggesting is that those in the public sector are damn well getting close. Even some of these backbenchers are damn well getting close to being part of the 1%. And these are the people that are supposed to be public servants, right? How are you a public servant when you go into a position where you are now part of the 1%? What? Really? The people that are serving are the ones that are richer than the people they serve? How is that serving the public? Yeah, right. No, you're plundering the productive income of those in the public and pretending that you serve them. That's the reality. Adding in additional salaries for the top office holders in Parliament, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, official opposition leader Andrew Scheer, Common Speaker Jeff Regan, and all of Trudeau's 34 cabinet ministers are past the 2016 Statistics Canada threshold. Backbench MPs are well into the upper ranks of the top 5% of income earners, which in 2016 began at the Statistics Canada threshold of $120,000 in annual earnings. That's another thing too. The Sunshine List, those who make over $100,000, these are all people living those sunny ways indeed. Once again, all at the expense and on the backs of the hardworking Canadians in the private sector that are going through some really rough financial and economic times currently. And according to Statistics Canada data from 2016 on the top 1% of income earners by province, Backbench MPs, even without additional salaries, are in the top income percentile in the 3 maritime provinces of Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island, where the top 1% of income groups in 2016 ranged from 160,300 to 176,500. We're talking about the very have not provinces. Take it from someone from New Brunswick. Even just for a typical blue-collar worker, even if you can get somewhere close to $40,000, and these are people that actually work, right? Not just sit there warming benches or basically not contributing anything tangible to society. These are, like I say, the backbone of society. At best, you're looking to make maybe $40,000 a year. These politicians are making to the tune of 3 or 4 times that for basically doing nothing. Or actually, even worse than nothing. Doing nothing would actually be better than the fact that a lot of these people are constantly trying to conjure up and figure out ways to write new rules, laws, or acts of legislation to dictate and control every area of our social and economic lives. Tell you the truth, I'd rather they were doing nothing. I still wouldn't be happy about this super entitled economic compensation they're getting for doing nothing, but hey, at least it'd be better than them not only benefiting economically at my expense, but also using their economic benefits and their position to make my life even more difficult going forward. Manitoba and Quebec were close with 1% thresholds of 187,100 and 192,600 respectively. Starting with the lowest level of extra pay for 56 opposition vice chairs of 26 of the 27 common standing committees and 1 joint common Senate committee whose annual extra salary rose to $6,200 on April, more than half of the 238 members of Parliament, a total of 186, receive additional salaries for House and Party caucus positions. The contingent of MPs getting an extra salary for House and caucus roles is bolstered by MPs who serve ministers as parliamentary secretaries, a total of 36 in the Trudeau government, whose additional pay rose to $17,500. The Prime Minister receives the equivalent of the basic MP indemnity as an extra salary, for a total income of $357,800. The House of Commons Speaker and the Leader of the official opposition both receive an additional salary of $85,500, as do cabinet ministers, for a combined pay of $264,400. The leader of other recognized parties, currently only the NDP's Jasmeet Singh, receives an additional salary of $60,000 on top of the basic indemnity, a term the Commons uses for MP remuneration aside from the extra salaries. Senators whose basic pay and additional salaries for extra work have always lagged MP pay and additional salaries also received a $3,300 pay hike to $153,900 in 2019 from $150,600 last year. The national spokesperson for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation appeared surprised at the amount of the parliamentary pay hike. I realize it's based on an index, but a lot of Canadians are concerned about job security and income, said the group's federal director, Aaron Woodrick. Woodrick said Parliament should put the annual pay hike to a vote where MPs could choose to accept it or not. Seems like politicians get a much better deal than the people they're governing, said Woodrick. I mean, even if you gave them the ability to vote on it, how many of these MPs are going to vote down themselves getting a pay raise or a pay hike? Really, I wouldn't say that that's a better alternative. But once again, at the very least, folks, what we're seeing here is these people that represent the public sector, they're completely out of touch. And of course, that's a reflection of having a forced wealth and income redistributive model, which is what people in government function under. When you don't have a profit motive or a profit margin or any kind of a bottom line whatsoever that dictates what these people should be paid for, the compensation that should be, like I say, in a free market environment, well, we'll figure that out because we'll have to come to some agreement in what the employer is willing to pay the employee. We as taxpayers, we don't have any say in the matter. We are actually supposed to be their employers because, once again, all of their incomes, all of their paychecks, all of their salaries, all their bonuses, everything they get and their pension is all paid for by forcing us taxpayers to ponying up for all this stuff, for all these entitlements, for all these salaries, for all this compensation. But do we get to have a say in it? Do we get to have a vote on whether we deem these people worthy of these sky-high salaries for basically doing nothing? No, we have no say in it. Or their gold-plated pensions that are always adjusted for inflation no matter how bad the economy is doing. Once again, we have no say in the matter. These people all have all the power, of course, because these are the ones that work for government. But you, as the lowly taxpayer, the wage slaves in this country, those who function in the private sector, like I say, that provide all that wealth that goes to compensate these entitled bureaucrats or politicians, you have no say in the matter. All you got is every few years you get to go check a box off and say which political party, which lesser of evil, which gang you prefer. But at the end of the day, even that by itself, all on its own, does nothing to affect or represent real fairness in this country. Like I say, folks, the only way we're ever going to get out from underneath this is to stop supporting any of the established political parties and to start unwinding the deep state, these bureaucratic institutions, and all those who are lined up at the trough and making out like bandits at the taxpayer's expense. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.